communist, a threat to America, who's incompatible with the governing style of America? You think he's incompatible with the governing style of America?
His values
Trump
are
doesn't think that.
Trump is wrong on this case.
You think Trump is wrong on this case?
Zohran Mamdani's principles are fundamentally hostile to the founding principles.
Progressive YouTuber Adam Mockler recently appeared on Abby Phillips' CNN program, where he faced off against a few MAGA guests who were busy pushing their usual fear-driven talking points about socialism, communism, and every buzzword they love to throw around. So today we're going to break down exactly what went down on that panel, how Adam handled the conversation, and why the right-wing panic machine was working overtime. And after watching the entire exchange myself, I'll also be sharing my own thoughts on the debate and what it reveals. So let's jump into it together.
Tonight, a surreal love fest between Donald Trump and the next mayor of New York. Zohran Mamdani visiting the White House today in a meeting that had to be seen to be believed. In light of what each man has said about each other over the last few months, this was extraordinary.
He's a communist. We're going to go to a communistic state. That's so bad for New York.
I think I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again.
If there is any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power.
I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting. Maybe I think he'll change his mind after we get to working together.
I am Donald Trump's worst nightmare as a progressive Muslim immigrant who actually fights for the things that I believe in. What I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement.
The Mamdani thing is it's a disaster waiting to happen. We can't have a communist in charge of a great, supposedly free enterprise, kind of a representative city.
Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would, especially after the meeting.
Our city is under attack by an authoritarian Trump administration.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes. Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Trump walked back his threats to cut funding to New York, and tonight he even posted photos of the visit saying the meeting was a great honor. Errol, what's going on? I mean, Zohran Mamdani won because he was opposed to Trump.
Well,
how's this going to play?
The city of New York won because there was a non-zero chance that there would be National Guard troops and chaos in the streets, even before the inauguration of Mamdani. So it's great that that's not necessarily going to happen, or at least it's not going to happen imminently. I think, look, there are a couple of things that are going on. One is that Mamdani came the way you're supposed to come to Donald Trump. You come with strength, and you come with some kind of notoriety, with some popularity. So he didn't just win the election. He won in a way that nobody's ever seen before. He went from 1% in the polls to winning the Democratic primary in about 6 months. He's got a certain amount of celebrity. President Trump noted that there were more press there, international press included, than for some heads of state. That gets the attention of somebody like a Donald Trump. And I guess finally, look, it is part of the Trump story. The Trump family fortune came from working with mayors and local officials in New York. And I think it's just kind of hardwired into him that being friendly with the mayor of New York can be a very lucrative proposition.
He said he used to want that job.
Absolutely.
It actually is a bit surprising he never actually did it. But, Brianna, Republicans are planning to run against Mamdani and to paint Democrats as communists, whatever. Now that seems to be completely out the window. How do you even do that?
I think Republicans should still stick with that strategy.
Okay.
I have very mixed feelings on today. I think the president, to your point, did what an executive would do. Whether you like Mamdani or not, he's running the largest city in America. You are going to have some kind of conversation with him. And it's nice that they had a cordial conversation today. I don't discount that. I also think that Donald Trump is kind of setting the stage here. He's leaving a line of communication open so that when Mamdani actually does take office and starts implementing policies, there could be communication where Donald Trump says, hey, I don't think you should do that, or we're going to have problems. That being said, I was disappointed. I think, one, in Mamdani, when he was asked if he still thinks Donald Trump is a fascist, and he was, I'm not going to answer.
Let me, can I just,
yeah, go ahead.
Let me just play it because, honestly, you have to listen to it to understand, to do it justice. Listen.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about.
That's okay. You can just say yes. Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
I wish he would have explained it. That's the part. Like you interrupt him so he can explain it.
I mean,
know you
Trump
say
just completely
Trump just is like, don't worry about it,
him out.
But you know what? Though,
answer.
they're both talented. Believe it. Like you say with your charisma, great politicians, great businessmen, and what we saw was good old-fashioned gaming. They were sitting there and they understood that they both needed something from one another. They both understand, Trump especially, that this is a rising star. I want to get a little bit of whatever this is that you have on you because I recognize it in me, and so I'm enjoying it. But what I think is really interesting is that that's just for now. There could be 2 or 3 or 4 things that will be true. Like today, it was nice. It was great. I was surprised. I was like, okay, this, to your point, not on my bingo card, but I was surprised to see how well they got along. But it makes sense because while they're on 2 different sides of the spectrum, there's a lot that they have in common.
Well, okay, so I agree. They're both extremely charming. I wasn't surprised, actually, by this. I didn't think either one of them were going to go in there trying to say, I'm the bigger man, even though we know that obviously the president is just because of his position.
I thought Trump was definitely going to do that.
I didn't, because Donald Trump is the same kind of man who has made it clear he's willing to meet with anybody. And I think, actually, today is going to be problematic for Democrats, because Mamdani did what Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are not willing to do, and that is to sit down with the president and try to find some kind of common ground here.
Or be complimentary.
I've heard that talking
or just be
point.
cordial.
I have heard that talking point, but I'm not sure I buy it.
Yeah.
I do.
Because at the end of the day, you know, the biggest weapon facing what Republicans are facing next year, which is going to be a really tough re-election for members in the House and the Senate, the economy being what it is, Trump's policies being as popular as they are, the biggest thing that they had that they could potentially run on is the S word, socialist, the C word, communist. I was always skeptical that that argument would work, but now Trump has taken it off the table.
Yeah.
I have to admit, Abby Phillips' reaction here genuinely cracked me up because the whole moment was just ridiculous in the best way, especially with Trump casually acting like being called a fascist is no big deal and basically telling people to just roll with it. But even though it made for great television, I don't think it's going to stop Republicans or MAGA folks from tossing around words like socialism and communism every chance they get. Because if you look at social media or listen to their usual commentators, like the ones on this panel, they throw those labels at every Democrat imaginable, whether it's someone on the left like Zohran Mamdani or someone as establishment as Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden. And at this point, the terms don't mean anything to them beyond being a generic insult that can be slapped on whoever they dislike. Almost like calling Democrats witches or warlocks would give them the same emotional satisfaction. So nothing about Trump's moment of honesty is going to change that decades-long pattern. And honestly, these pundits who keep warning about socialism probably think about it more than actual socialists do. Which says a lot about who is really obsessed here. And when it comes to Trump himself, this just proves again that he doesn't have a real ideology outside of being anti-migrant and chasing whatever benefits him personally. Because he'll praise or criticize anything depending only on whether it helps him. And that's why you could see him almost admiring Mamdani's charisma and confidence in that clip, since those are qualities Trump has always wanted people to see in him. But even with that obvious admiration, MAGA supporters will just pretend the whole thing never happened and continue calling Mamdani a socialist, a communist, or whatever dramatic label they feel like using to paint him as a threat.
You saw Donald Trump essentially undermining the MAGA media ecosystem in real time. For the past few months, they've called Zohran Mamdani a jihadist, communist, a threat to America who's incompatible with the governing style of America. You think he's incompatible with the governing style of America?
His values
Trump
are
doesn't think
fundamental.
that.
Trump is wrong on this case.
You think Trump is wrong on this case?
Zohran Mamdani's principles are fundamentally hostile to the founding
Which
principles.
Ones?
His idea that we should confiscate property. John Locke, the founders, they were very clear that property rights
Has he ever talked to
founding.
He's never said anything about confiscation.
He said he wants to take luxury
moderated 2 debates
condos.
that have interviewed him half a dozen times.
Then you would know that he said that.
There's no confiscation.
Hey, maybe
Then you
there's
would
a
know,
chance.
you would know that he said that. He said
means of property.
Can I just say,
and that luxury condos
this
should
is a
be taken
perfect,
if they're not in use?
This is a perfect example. The MAGA media ecosystem has made Zohran seem like this extreme jihadist.
evil
And listen,
man.
some of his ideas
The
are outside
legislation
the
he's
current political
supporting in the
spectrum.
council will force property owners before they can sell it on the public market
It's called
to
right of
sell it.
first
Why didn't
refusal.
Trump confront him about
to
that
a
the other day? Why didn't Trump confront him about it? Why was Trump?
He said it was his honor.
Maybe he did.
He said
Well,
it
you know
was
what
his
Trump
honor.
said? Trump said that we both agree on increasing
on the housing.
supply of housing, and
They're
that's
best
going
friends. They're BFFs.
I'll tell you why it hasn't taken the socialism issue off the ballot, because Zohran Mamdani's own party is facing a challenge. Because not just is Hakeem Jeffries facing a challenge from a socialist, but you have Jerry Nadler retiring and socialists running for that seat. You have Dan Goldman facing a socialist challenger. You have Grace Meng facing a socialist challenger. All these members of the House, there's probably 4 or 5 of them, are facing socialist challenges.
Although,
I
I guess we should know that Mamdani has explicitly come out against a challenger.
And this is why I
to
give him
Hakeem
credit.
Jeffries.
This is why I give him credit,
Yeah.
because he has the most to lose. He spent last night basically telling his own DSA members not to support a socialist against an establishment Democrat.
Yeah.
Now today he's out there, chumming around with Donald Trump. He has a lot to lose on this, and I give him credit for doing the right
Let
thing
me
for the
ask
city.
you real quick on Elise Stefanik. She had a response to all of this. She says, we all want New York City to succeed, but we'll have to agree to disagree on this one. If he walks like a jihadist, if he talks like a jihadist, if he campaigns like a jihadist, if he supports jihadists, he's a jihadist. And he is Kathy Hochul's jihadist. If you're Elise Stefanik tonight, how do you feel? Because I'm not sure that works
I don't think,
anymore.
no matter what, she ain't going to take her foot off the gas. I mean, she's going to go after him. She uses the term jihadist, but if you hang out with Hassan Piker, if you hang out with people that deny 9/11 was the responsibility of Islamic terrorism, you hang out with people like that, you're going to get that criticism. That's going to be her issue. That's what she's going to push in the campaign. I don't think she's going to take her foot off the gas one bit.
Errol, why do you think Mamdani made this pivot? In a way, I mean, it is somewhat, it's smart because he neutralized Trump in especially in the first maybe 6 months of his term on some very key issues, law and order, maybe even ICE, funding for the city of New York. Why do you think he ended up here?
Well, look, Mamdani wants to succeed. He wants to be a successful mayor before he wants to do anything else. This caricature that people have painted of him as if he's some ideologue who all he's ever wanted to do is implement this ideology. He's been in office for 5 years. That is not at all what has happened. We've seen what socialist incumbents have done. If you look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they have not ended the social order. They have not overturned capitalism. Bernie Sanders has been in office for how long? He's given the same speech for a generation.
Because they're a minority within the Democratic conferences, they're still a minority. Zohran didn't pass any legislation. It doesn't mean he didn't propose and push socialist principle
attempts
legislation.
to terrify the public over people because they have the socialist word somewhere in their ideology, somewhere on their website. It just doesn't work. We just put it to a vote in the biggest city. We had record turnout. We put it to a vote.
And that's the problem.
It didn't work.
It was put to a vote in the biggest city, but I bet you Abigail Spanberger couldn't run as a socialist. I bet you Mikey Sherrill couldn't run. Mikey Sherrill couldn't run as a socialist.
So the Democratic Party is fully beholden to socialism.
No. I'm saying the Democratic Party doesn't know who it is, as evidenced by the point that I just pointed out. There's 6 members of New York being primaried by socialism.
You think the Republican Party knows what they are right now?
There's a lot of momentum in New York.
Today is an illustration of what I think is really going on, which is that people don't fear socialism as much as they fear what will happen if this demon that they've created actually succeeds, actually gets along with the president, actually keeps the streets clean and safe.
I'm afraid of socialism, and I want him to succeed.
And runs the schools the way they should be run.
I continue to say voters do not care about these words, okay?
Yeah,
they don't know what
in
they
one ear,
mean.
now
They
that-
don't care about them. They want to
That's
know
it.
what you're going to do for them.
Abby Phillip really nailed it with her closing point. And while Republicans will keep pushing the same tired fear-mongering about socialism, it's losing its impact because more people, especially younger generations, see through the theatrics. Now, and although Adam Mockler is absolutely right to laugh at MAGA personalities like Joe Belly, I don't think this moment shifts anything in the broader narrative since MAGA figures will simply pick new targets to slap the socialist label on if they think Mamdani no longer works for their storyline. And let's not forget they've already called Biden Kamala Harris. And even Barack Obama socialists, despite all of them being mainstream centrists. Which shows how meaningless the word has become in their political language. So while Abby Phillip is correct that these scare tactics grow weaker every year, I disagree slightly with Mockler's idea that this somehow disrupts the right-wing ecosystem because Trump having a friendly moment with Mamdani isn't going to make Republicans abandon decades of buzzwords. And pundits like Scott Jennings, Ben Ferguson, and the rest who appear on Abby Phillips' show will keep branding anything even slightly left of their worldview as socialism or communism. But I'm curious what you think about all this do. You side more with Adam Mockler and Abby Phillips' analysis? Or do you agree with the right-wing commentators like Brianna Lyman and Joe Belli? So share your thoughts below and I'll catch you in the next video.